When it comes to your tomatoes, something that a lot of gardeners don't realize is indeterminate and determinate, and then there's hybrids of the both. And I think a lot of gardeners, I didn't realize when I first started gardening, but you need to take care of the plants differently. The difference is you're typically gonna cage. All of us know what tomato cages are. Tomato cages aren't ideal for your indeterminate tomatoes. And more of the varieties that we buy from the garden stores, they're actually indeterminate or a hybrid of the two. Now, an indeterminate, the difference is that plant can grow 10 feet tall, if not more, if you allow it and train it correctly. The determinate, I guess, it's a bush. It's gonna be whatever shape and size it's gonna be based on the DNA of that plant. The indeterminate, if this is the tomato stem, you have your branches coming off at 90-degree angles. And those ones, like right here, and they're not always exactly 90-degree angles, but you can see here, this one's coming off the main stem at just about a 90-degree angle. This guy right here is basically gonna start a whole nother plant. I mean, all from the same root system, but it divides. It can become exponential and it becomes unruly. So if you've had issues in the past where your tomatoes are just taking over and then they start to get mildew and other things and fungus on the leaves, it's an indeterminate one that you're just not pruning correctly. And it's actually really simple, but they grow really quick, so you need to be on top of it on a pretty regular basis. So what you would do with your indeterminate, you identify your 90-degree angle branches, and those are gonna be the ones that are just to absorb sun, and they're not going to grow very much. At your junctions there, you're going to have these plants that are growing off, and again, that will start a whole nother shoot. So you're just going to take your fingers, just pinch it off, and I just throw it back in there. And in another week, it's going to try to grow another one out of there. So you really want to control it quickly, just because your plant can really get out of control. Now, at the top of the plant, sometimes it's hard to tell which is which. Even for me, every once in a while, I'll be like, well, which one is actually the main plant? So just wait. If it's at the top of the plant, you don't need to prune it yet or thin it. And then you also have your fruit coming off here at junctions, and you want to make sure you don't prune those. So you can see here, this one, it's coming back. I thinned it out the other day, and now it's coming back. So if we go back on this plant, I have one there, and they're not always 90-degree angles. I mean, that's almost more like a 45-degree angle, but right in the center, it's gonna try to put out another plant. And I just follow it up and figure out which is the extra shoots that I want to break off, and all the way down to the bottom, because the ones on the bottom are the ones you're gonna miss, and it's gonna create a whole nother bush. If your vegetables are not getting enough airflow and not getting enough light, that's when they're gonna start creating fungus problems, and that you're gonna, your plant's just gonna get unruly. This is one of my favorite things that I wish I would have known about a lot longer ago. It's a tomato clip. You can buy 200 of these for $10 on Amazon. And they're just, it locks in, and then you can take it off if you need it. So I was able to save about half from last year. The sun is pretty hard on the plastic here. And then I add more. So I'm still using last year's clips. And then I have a new bag that I just bought that I'll start to get into here pretty quick. So I'll put a link below for what I use, what I've gotten. You can use that, you can use a different one. They're all really the same. Okay, this tomato cage that I built, you can see it's pretty flimsy. It's not designed to be weight bearing. That's not the point of this. This is basically, think of your tomato cages that you're familiar with. And these are generally for your determinate tomato plants and sometimes your hybrid plants, which is kind of a cross between the two. This is, you need something similar to this. Doesn't have to be this design that I use, but something that's going to allow them to grow up, and using the string is the best option here for your indeterminates. So your indeterminates, you can train them up again 10, probably 15 feet if you train them well. So what I've actually done here, you can see I only have 5 plants in there, but I have what, 8, 9, 10 of these strings, because with my indeterminates, I can put, this is one part of this right here. These are both the same plant, and this is the same plant. And there's another one right here that's the same plant. I'm gonna have 4 or 5 shoots coming out of my indeterminate that I'm gonna keep and train. And then what will happen is, as it goes up, you'll see it'll start to flower out. So here I have some small tomatoes. Here I have flowers starting, and you can see the next phase right up here of flowers that haven't yet bloomed. So it just moves up the plant. When I get to the top of the plant, if I'm still going in a growing season, what I can do is allow a new shoot to create off the bottom and start the whole process over again. So long as you keep an indeterminate plant conditioned and the roots healthy, that plant is just gonna go and go until either a disease kills it, you don't water it, or you get your frost in the fall. They will sometimes stop producing when it gets really hot, like we get in the Southwest. When it comes to these tomato clips, what I'm doing here, I'm gonna take this joint in between and I'm gonna push that where I want it. The reason that's important, that will actually lock and it's not gonna slide. I could just do it in the loop like that, but that will slide up and down and you kind of want to control it. So get your string in there and then that doesn't slide now. So I do it there's no exact art to how far you have to do it. It's more just to make sure that you're training this to go up that way. And I'll do the same thing on this plant. So you can see down here, I have the first one. I'm actually gonna jump up about 1 foot on this one. I don't need to go as far or as close. And I'm just gonna put it right there. And what I'll do is I'll train that one to come up out here. And I'll probably, your vegetables need a minimum of 6 hours of sunlight. 8 hours is ideal for most of your vegetables. Back in the back here, I'm probably, as we get further into the summer, the sun's gonna move further north and some of this tree is gonna start to shade it. So I may have to consider cutting a few of the branches of the tree above, because if I'm not getting 8 hours of sunlight, my tomatoes aren't gonna ripen. I'll get a lot of growth of greenery, but I'm not gonna get ripe tomatoes. All right, you can see here I've got another offshoot coming, another one coming, and I will just take this and clip it in to train it. The reason I'm training them is if I don't train these, you're gonna see this branch right here, it's just gonna, the weight is gonna make it lay down and it's just gonna go everywhere. But if I train them out and space them out correctly, then they're gonna get the right amount of light and the right amount of airflow to keep the plant healthy. And I don't want more than 5 or 6 shoots coming off of one tomato plant. At least I personally don't want more than that. That's gonna become a lot. And then I'll just have each one of these strings take one of these plants up it. Now this right here, this is a hybrid. You can see right here, I do have something growing in the joint here, but I don't have them up here. I have them there. So your determinate tomato plants grow more like a tree. You'll have an offshoot come this way and then off this way and then off this way. Whereas your indeterminate, you have your branch and then something's growing here and it's creating a whole nother plant basically from the same roots. So you will find, you're gonna say, but wait, aren't you supposed to space your tomatoes X amount of space? Yeah, you are. And if you have that space, more power to you. I push the limits on everything. If they say to space it at 18 inches, I'm gonna try to do it at 12. But what you need to watch for then again, is it gonna get enough light? Is it gonna get enough water with being that close? Is there enough space for the root system to develop without overcrowding? And airflow, that's big, because your tomatoes and some of the other plants, they're gonna get fungal disease if they don't have that right airflow going on. So you can push it, just, it requires a little bit more watching it if you're gonna do that. This planter box right here there are only actually 4 plants in there. They're all indeterminate. And so they get unruly. That's why you can see there are so many strings coming off this one, but this is also, these are our Sun Gold cherry tomatoes. If you have not tried the Sun Gold cherry variety, you need to try it. One, it's one of the most prolific cherry tomato plants out there. You will get a ton of fruit off of one healthy plant. Two, it's indeterminate, so you can plant one plant and channel it up 4 or 5 different plant systems, all from the same root. But it's also the sweetest tomato out there that we have found. It's an orange, almost the color of like a sunset orange, and it's really almost more like a fruit. I mean, it's almost like a grape. It's so sweet. As far as, it's not what you normally expect. It's not super acidic. Very, very few of these make it inside because my kids sit here like deer and graze on them all day long. So we have to fight off the kids like you fight off your raccoons in other areas just to make sure that we get some inside. So that's what this plant is. It's one of our favorites, but they are all indeterminate. Again, at the 45-degree angle, there's one I need to take off there, and another one that's growing back that I had already taken off. And down here, it's growing back. This is what I talked about a second ago. This one's not clipped in correctly, and so it can slide. It's not a huge deal. I'm just gonna go back and clip one above it. And you just gotta be careful of your flowers to not hurt them as you're, I mean, it's a pretty hardy plant. I'm not concerned so much, but I just wanna make sure that it has room to grow with the wood and the rope. So I'm just gonna go through real quick, speed it up, show you what I do about twice a week. All right, now the goal here is to catch them earlier. I just caught a couple from the bottom that's bigger than I want. The reason being that creates a larger wound on the tomato plant that can become susceptible to different diseases. So if you can catch them small, that's better.